everyone. Thank you for joining us. And as always, I am completely lost on Facebook Live because it changes every time. But we are very excited to be back doing Facebook Lives. We will be doing these on a monthly basis again. So thank you for joining. And for those that are joining later on and aren't able to watch live, we do appreciate you checking the video out afterwards. I'm Samantha. I've been with the nonprofit for about 5 years now and excited, like I said, first Facebook Live of the year. We have a very exciting author that I'm super stoked to be here with and to kind of talk to today. So hopefully you guys enjoy this as well. I do have author Kacy Chambers with us today. I'm going to let her introduce herself because she has a really exciting story and I'd rather hear it from her. So.
Hi, like Samantha said, my name is Kacy Chambers. I am a mom of 2 children, both who have multiple learning differences. So I'm familiar with the ropes that you have to climb to navigate through that. And I'm a wife, and I've been a stay-at-home mom for 14 years, basically. And I live in Memphis, Tennessee.
Very exciting. Well, thank you for joining us today. You definitely have your hands full as a full-time stay-at-home mom. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and away from your kids for a short period to kind of talk to us and our community today, because I know that they were really excited to hear about your book. So I want to kind of start first with just your background in writing, because I talk to a lot of our ambassadors and some of our adults that are going into college or are doing grad school, and they are in writing programs. They enjoy writing. So I kind of want to start there today, and then we'll get into the book in just a little bit. But how did you get into writing and what encouraged you to do it? How do you publish books? Give us a little bit of background on that to kind of give some information to those that are really interested in this kind of career path.
Sure. So I kind of fell in love with writing in elementary school. So I got an assignment in the 4th grade to do a book of poetry. And we had to have 50 poems in our book. It was a Mother's Day assignment. And that's when I found that author, Shel Silverstein. And it just made me just fall in love with poetry. And so I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. But then I got the same assignment again, different school, different grade, 6th grade. And that's when I became hooked into writing poems. And I wrote poems from 6th grade all the way through college and past college even. And so that's where my love for writing began. And so it just so happened that I decided when I was having these certain conversations with my children, and I was looking for certain books that didn't exist, I thought, well, I can write the book. So I wrote a book. I wrote a book on I could have brought it with me, but I took printer paper, cut it into 4 squares and stapled it together. And that's how I wrote my first book. And then after that, I went through this long rabbit hole of research trying to figure out how I could get the book published. And so I decided I had to weigh my options and decide whether I wanted to self-publish or do traditional publishing. And I had so many book ideas. I just decided that I wanted to go ahead and do the self-publishing route. And so I published my first book on my own. And I realized through that I could, if it didn't scare me away, it didn't make me run to do traditional publishing for the rest of the books. I thought I can really do this. So I published 8 books, self-published, and I decided to create my own publishing company to help other people publish books. So I've published books for a lot of other people too. I think at this point I've published about 155 books, including books for other people. So it's something that, a lot of people don't want to go through that rabbit hole of, researching and trying to figure out what to do. And you make a lot of mistakes along the way. And so those people are the ones that I also help publish their books so they can tell their stories, because I feel like everybody has a story to tell.
That's truly amazing, especially hearing that you've published that many books for other people, as well as doing your own writing and being a mom and, just taking care of all that. That's really amazing. Congratulations on all of
Yes.
that. So very
Thanks.
cool. Yeah. So then tell me how you learned about NVLD. How did you kind of come about that encouraged you to write the I Have Nonverbal Learning Disability and That's Okay book, along with some others that you've written? What kind of led you into this?
So my books were all every book that I've written has a personal connection to me. And so I have nonverbal learning disability, and that's okay. That book was written because my son has nonverbal learning disability. And when he was diagnosed, third grade was very hard for us. It's very, very hard. Lots of tears. He had lots of tears, and I had lots of tears. And his teachers were very impatient. He went to a really good school, a really good public school, but his teachers were very impatient, and they kept insisting that I just go get him some ADHD medicine. They told me that he just needs to be on ADHD medicine and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, how do you know that? You're just a teacher? Like, shouldn't a doctor say that he needs that? So, it made me want to really have some thorough testing done on him. And so we went to a psychologist first, and educational psychology test is what we had done. And the therapist was very confused during his testing process. And she told me, she said, I'm confused. His scores are extremely high in some areas, and they're extremely low in other areas. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And she asked, could she consult other colleagues to try to help her? And I said, sure. But what threw me off was that she came back with that diagnosis of just ADHD. And I thought, that's odd. If it was just ADHD, wouldn't you have picked that up? So it made me want to get him further testing. And so that's when I took him to a neuropsychologist and got him tested. And it came back with the diagnosis of nonverbal learning disability, which I had never heard of before. So I was completely, freaking out, overwhelmed. And it sent me on this journey of doing lots of research. I was constantly, on websites and buying books and doing all of this. And through my own experience, I realized that how tough it is for people, because no one knows what nonverbal learning disability is.
Yep.
So it makes it just so hard. And so what I wanted to do with my book is I wanted to empower those children living with nonverbal learning disability, but educate the people that are in their circle. And when I say in their circle, I mean their cousins, aunts, uncles, teachers, church members, neighbors, because they just don't know. And the only way to help someone that doesn't know is to try to educate them. And so I felt like that's what we needed for our circle. And even when it came to his sister. So when I wrote the book, I was really writing the book as if, because his sister was 7 years old at that time. So I was writing the book as if I was talking to her. And so when I wrote the book, I had her read it, and I asked her questions, about the book, and did she understand, and what did she learn from reading the book. And so that's what helped me shape the book to make it what it is today. But that is essentially why it was created, to empower those living with it and educate those who don't have it.
That's amazing. I love that you even used his sister to kind of like help you and make sure that it was hitting the points that you wanted and really kind of conveying that information across to that inner circle for these students to, or not students, but children, to make sure that they're really understood by those closest to them, because that's truly like what they need. They need that support and that kind of like circle of empowerment to be successful.
Right.
That's really, and I want to just say it's amazing that you found somebody there that knew what NBLD was, that was able to diagnose, because I think that's one of the things we hear the most is they do get misdiagnosed first. We do know that a lot of them, a lot of people that actually have NBLD are misdiagnosed with ADHD or ASD or Asperger's. And so it's really important to make sure that you do go to somebody if you suspect that you or your child or someone you know has NBLD, that you do find a neuropsych that is familiar with NBLD to make sure that that is something they're looking for as well.
Right.
So it's really great that you guys found somebody that was able to give you the right diagnosis
Yes.
to help you with that. So the book that you wrote, it's part of a series, kind of, is that correct? There's a couple of books.
Yeah, it's a collection, a learning disability collection, because so it's not quite a series, but I wanted other kids that have learning disabilities to have a book that has their diagnosis on the cover, because it makes it more personal to them, more relatable. So that's what made me create my second book, which is I have autism and that's okay. And then the third one is just I have a learning disability and that's okay.
Oh, that's amazing. We'll definitely need to add the learning disability one to our site as well, to make sure we get both of those on there. So that's really cool. Yeah, and so if you could just give us, like, I know you kind of went through the process of writing the book, but for those that are on, can you give us a quick synopsis of the book so that they know what it's about for when they do go to purchase it to share with their inner circle?
Yeah, so in the book, I kind of touch on different traits that my son has with nonverbal learning disability. And let me just say that it's very hard to write a book that includes everybody's traits, because nonverbal learning disability looks different on everybody. So I did include traits that I definitely saw in him, but I did research to include a couple of other ones too. So it has, it says, for example, it names some of the things that he struggles with. Like one of the things he struggles with is tying his shoe. So I made sure tying his shoes was a huge deal for us. I don't know if it is for everybody that has nonverbal learning disability, but it was such a big deal that my son to this day, he doesn't tie his shoe the traditional way. He ties his shoe like runners tie their shoes that do marathons. So we had to Google other methods to tie a shoe, and so when we're out and he has to tie his shoe, everybody's always so fascinated. How did you do that? Show me again, because he does it so quickly. And it's amazing that he can do that so fast and so quick, and it impresses other people. But as far as making that little bunny rabbit, the bunny ear and tie, that just doesn't work for him. But right, it's not happening. But I also included things like how difficult it was for him to hold his pencil or write, how he always used to get that written on his papers, in school, because it was hard for him to stay on the line. It was hard for his letters to be the same size. So everything that used to come home with for him used to always say, that it was messy. And I don't know what that does to your self-esteem when you feel like you're really trying your best to write, neatly and it's never satisfactory. So I included that. And then I included how hard it is for him to read faces, read emotions. I included that, and how it was difficult for him to understand jokes. It's funny because it took a long time for him to learn my sarcasm. And so later on, we would just practice. I kept using it because I wanted him to learn it. And he would say, "Are you being sarcastic?" Like, yes, I'm being sarcastic. So I included that. I included things like how clumsy they appear to be. My son used to bump into the wall all the time, and I thought it was the weirdest thing. I'm thinking, you're just walking down the hallway. How do you hit the wall? But then after I name those things, then I go into the things that make him unique, because he has nonverbal learning disability. So I put in there how he knew big words at such a young age. Like my friends and friends of family friends would say, his vocabulary is so big, he sounds like a little professor. How do you get him to talk that way? I didn't do anything, but I wanted to make sure I included that, and how important it is to treat someone nice. Even though you might not understand everything about them, you can still treat them nicely. And I also put in there about how inquisitive he is. He always asks a lot of questions, but I put in there that asking those questions helps get you the answers so that you learn more. That's not a bad thing. So I tried to, at the end of the book, turn all of the things that are considered negative into the positive. So that was my goal in writing the book. I wanted to, when I first started writing, and I had the traits that are often that nonverbal learning disability diagnosis normally have, I didn't want to just leave it with just, if you have nonverbal learning disability, you might do this or that or this or that. I didn't want to just leave it with that and consider that educating the world about nonverbal learning disability. I wanted them to know the pluses of people that have nonverbal learning disability. So that's why the end of the book ties it in and explains all of those unique qualities. I tell my son all the time, with nonverbal learning disability, they're supposed to have this, struggle with math. And his struggle is really odd to me, because he struggles with math. He really does. But when I ask him, I could say, this person was born in 1928. How old are they? And he says it so fast. I mean, just so fast, faster than I can figure it out. So I use that all the time with him to tell him that, you see, that's a plus. That's one of your pluses. So that's what this book was really created to do, to educate and tell you those traits that you see that you think are odd. Yeah, they have some traits that you might think are odd, but they also have these beautiful, unique traits that make them so different, but beautiful,
No, I think it's great that you really focus, like, because I, especially with any learning disability, the focus is always on the challenges. What can the child not do? What are they, what do we need to fix? What do we need to do? And I love that you have focused on also like the gifts that come with that. It's something that we also try to focus on when we're talking about it and kind of like sharing stories, is like, yes, there are challenges, but like, what special gifts are you bringing that other people don't have because you are diagnosed with NVLD? Like how, what special unique traits and skills do you have, like that big vocabulary and the little professor thing? I hear it all the time from like so many different people. And so it's so interesting. But I love that the book focuses on both sides of that, because that is a true understanding of NVLD, not just having the understanding of the challenges. You really do have to understand like what those gifts are and where they do excel and exceed in life as well. So I love that.
Right. And I can honestly say that I think writing the book helped him. I've seen him blossom when it comes to his learning disability. And just the last couple of years, he this t-shirt, he has a shirt like this. It has, I have a nonverbal learning disability, and that's okay. So he was getting ready to go to the gym, and he had this shirt on and some shorts, and he was going to walk out the door. And I said, "Oh, you forgot to change your shirt," because I thought he would have on a gym shirt. And he said, "No, I'm wearing this.
I
And
love
he
it.
went out and played basketball on the court with all of these older people, grown men with that shirt on it. That to me made me feel like, okay, I know for sure now he's not walking around with shame. He's not walking around with his head down. And that was my goal in writing this book and just, trying to spread awareness about nonverbal learning disability.
Yeah. Have you noticed that since, and just kind of like going off the fact that he wore the shirt out in public and kind of did that, have you noticed that he's been able to advocate for himself a little more, having a better understanding of himself and his diagnosis with like teachers
Absolutely.
and friends?
Absolutely. So this
Amazing.
year was the first year that I didn't send out my teacher emails. I normally send my teacher emails out every year. He's in the 8th grade this year. And so I normally let him go through the first couple of weeks of school just to see what the grades and everything will look like without the email going out. So I get ready to send the email this year. And he said, "Oh, Mom, you don't have to send it out. I already talked to my teachers." And I said, "Well, what did you say to your teachers?" And he said, "Well, I told them that I have nonverbal learning disability and that I might need some help. And so what do I need to do when I need help with the things that I'm struggling with?" And he said, and I told my math teacher, math is my hardest subject. So I was blown away because I didn't expect that I wasn't going to encourage him to do it on his own until high school, but he surprised me and did it this year. So I do think that it's helping him advocate for himself, definitely.
And what was the teacher's responses? Did they blow him off, or did they really listen to him, and are they working with him this year?
No, he said they actually listened to him. But I will tell you that I still have struggles when it comes to teachers, but I think we're in a better place. I think at each transition uh welcomes, the possibility of, change, because you have so many more teachers now than he used to have in high school. I mean, in elementary school. So I do think that his teachers are aware and that they do work with him for the most part. I just don't know for sure how many of them what is the word I'm looking for? How many of them actually took the time to understand how they could help him more?
Yep. Okay. That's amazing. I think, I don't know if you've seen it on our site, but we do have that piece that we wrote with Winston Prep for educators. If you ever wanted to share that with them, we do have that educational, I don't know if we call it a pamphlet or a workbook, but we have something on our site, and I can send it to you later, that you might want to share or give him to share with his teachers, that does have some kind of like intervention suggestions and that kind of stuff, if you're interested in that too.
Oh, no, I have it. It's printed
Okay,
out.
good. Good.
Yeah.
So I do have, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's part of what I used to send
Oh,
to
perfect.
his teachers. Mhm.
Love that. Cool. So I wanted to kind of jump in really quick. I do have a question, since we're kind of talking about school and being a parent and that kind of stuff. We got a question on Instagram when we posted the announcement for this Facebook Live. I believe it's from a mom, and she's asking about successes in academics. So can you discuss, as a parent, if you've had any techniques for schedule making, organization, how to study, just any kind of tips and tricks for parents to help their students kind of see that academic success and be prepared and organized and kind of staying on top of homework and that stuff. If you have any advice or tips and tricks that you found that work.
Well, I think one of the things that worked best for us was list. We have lists for everything. And I don't know if that should have been an indicator early on that that something was there, but we've had a list for my son since he was in kindergarten, a morning routine, when you get home from school routine, a before bed routine, and we had them posted in his closet. But he needed that in order to see what to do next, because he would just ask, after he did each thing, what do I do now? So that the list seemed to help. As he got into the upper grades, what I felt like worked the best was a planner. And to me, the planner works even, excuse me, even better if the teacher will do some communication back and forth with you. So how we had my son set up when he was, I think, in third grade, was the teacher would write down or she would make sure he wrote down his assignment correctly of what he had to do for homework. And then I had to initial it when he got home. And if I had any questions about the assignments, I could write that there. But that was the only way we kind of got on the same page of getting the assignments done, because before that, the assignments weren't getting written down. So I feel like that binder going back and forth with the parent, I feel like that's really good if you can get the teachers to work with you on that. And then when we got to the higher upgrades, teachers don't do that anymore, in middle school. I feel like what works best is, well, I had to move my son. I had to move him to private school because we just couldn't make it work in public school, unfortunately. But what they have at their school is they put all of the assignments on this app. And so I guess kids that don't struggle or don't have learning differences, I'm assuming they just do their work and their parents don't provide, they don't see that app or anything like that, because as long as the work is getting done. But with my son, I review the assignments on the app and check them to make sure that they're done. So I feel like that's another step that you could do as they get higher up in the grades. I think a lot of schools are probably using apps, and I don't think it's just private school that are using the apps to post assignments, but I feel like that is a key thing. Is middle school is a big adjustment for them because it's more teachers, and then it's just the transition of going to a different place. So I feel like they need that guidance, and that seems to help as well, just making sure that they're checking their assignments to see if they're done. I have to ask my son, okay, it says that you had math page 4. Where is that? So I check that daily, weekly, to make sure that he's not falling behind on those assignments. I know that question also mentioned organization skills. So with organization, it was a huge struggle for us. And what we saw help us was occupational therapy. I don't know if a lot of people that have nonverbal learning disability participate in that, but that was one of the reasons that we started occupational therapy. And she works with him to try to help him be more organized, to help him. And I'll tell you another thing, that part of the problem with the assignments for my son, and I don't know if everybody has this experience with nonverbal learning disability, but he doesn't like to write. So writing has, and I think it started with that whole messy thing. I don't know, what kind of impact that has on you, but he doesn't like to write anything. So our thing now is, okay, it has to go down somewhere. So let's put it on the computer. You don't like to write, let's type it. So we do a lot of typing for things. So Google Calendar, once they get old enough to do that, you can, as a parent, you can go in and put, hey, your social studies project is due on this date, and you put their email in there, it sends the alert to them as well. So that's something that you can do. And then for high school, I haven't experienced that yet, but I'm getting ready to, so I've already been thinking about it. And I think in high school, my plan is to definitely allow him to talk to his teachers, since he's already started that. But my plan is to establish a relationship with the school counselor, for sure, so that I can let her know that, yes, I am giving him the opportunity to advocate for himself. However, I just want to know what is set up for him to have some kind of accommodations at the school. I think accommodations can go a long way if allowed. With his school, we didn't do accommodations this year because they're extras, the extra charge, and we're already paying more money for private schools. So that's why we're working so hard with checking his assignments and doing that on our own. And then even the comment I saw, it also included college. In college, I recommend that you reach out to your disability services. Most colleges, if not all colleges, have a disability department. Even when I was in college, I was diagnosed with the learning difference when I was there, and I had disability, went to disability services and received accommodations that I had no idea existed. So I had untimed tests. I didn't have to take my test in the classroom with other people. I could go to student services and take my test in a quiet room where it was just me. I had the ability to have a note taker so I didn't have to work, because it's very difficult for me to listen and take notes. It's just too many things for me. So they have awesome services that are available. I just don't think a lot of people know about it. And with the student services or the disability services in college, that's something that a parent can't do for you. You have to go and do it yourself. But there are services out there and apps out there. I'm still finding apps. I found a different app today that I said I was going to check on. So there are services out there. We just have to work hard to kind of search for them.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting that you bring up the college thing and the services there, because what we've heard from some of our ambassadors that are in college, have gone through college, that it's almost easier to get services in college because they're not bound by IEPs and 504 plans based on the DSM, which, we're trying to get MALD in the DSM. That's the end goal, but it is a little bit easier in college. So if you're a parent or a student that's going into that level of education, definitely reach out to those services that are available at your college, because I do believe that it's easier to get to. So that's really exciting as well. I do have non-academic questions, just based on some of the comments on Facebook at this time. Are you, Kacy, still there? I think you froze. Okay, we're gonna give her a minute and see if she comes back. Okay, so she's dropped off, but hopefully she will be back in just a minute. So I'll she's back. Keep an eye on her.
I'm back in the dark.
Yeah, you came back. Did your power go out?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh no.
They're working on our power in our neighborhood.
Gotcha. No worries. Well,
how convenient.
Looks like we're like at a campfire now, ready to tell some scary stories. So, but so we do have, if your internet stays with us long enough, we do have a couple questions in the Facebook Live comments right now. And if you drop off, maybe we can answer them a little bit later. But I'm going to start with an easy one. Someone wants to know where to get your lovely shirts.
Oh, wow. Okay. So those, you can go to my website, www.authorkacychambers.com. And it'll be a link. Yeah. And it's a link on there that takes you to the shop, which is actually on Etsy.
And can they also buy your book on the website as well?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so I just dropped that in the comments. If anybody wants that link, it is down there. The other thing that we kind of are seeing in the comments, like on the opposite side of academics, is the social side of things. So we reading emotions, kind of reading those facial expressions, and then just social interactions in general. Do you have any advice on how you've helped him increase those social skills and kind of like understand sarcasm and facial expressions? Do you have any advice on that, or is it just something that you guys kind of have a very open conversation and talk about?
Well, it depended on the age. So in the beginning, we did not have a conversation about it. But what I would recommend is to, if you do, use sarcasm occasionally, I don't recommend stopping. I think it's something that they need to learn and pick up on, and they do. They can eventually. Yours. That doesn't mean they'll pick up on somebody else's, but they can learn yours. So I don't recommend stopping with that. And as they get older, then you can start having conversations about it. But what works best to me is social skills classes. We've done social skills classes now for 5 years.
Oh,
So, yeah, and so we do them because my son is in so many different therapies. We're not able to, excuse me, we're not able to do all of them all year long.
okay.
But in the summertime is when we normally pick up social skills. And I feel like it helps a lot. They have, at least in my area, they have a social skills class that's just for teenagers and adults. So he's in there with children that are 13 up to, there's somebody there that's over 18. So it really helps because it's a big range of people, and he's seeing other people. And in the social, I think part of the reason why social skills work so well, the classes, is because they see other behaviors that they think are inappropriate. So they can point out what other people are doing that's inappropriate, but they can't necessarily see what they're doing that's inappropriate. So it helps because when he comes home, well, even when they're there, they have conversations about it. But when he comes home, we continue those conversations to talk about, well, because he'll say, this person did this and I did this. And so, well, do you think you were wrong at all when you said this or did this? So it turns into a conversation, which really helps them learn and grow from it. So I recommend social skills classes to anybody who can get in them. And I even found one online. So he's taken one online twice. So that's what I would recommend.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that. I'm just going to check and see if we've got anything else. I know we've had a few people actually live with us. I do know a lot of people come on and kind of watch these afterwards. This is actually one of our latest ones we've done. So we may have had 4 more people off work. But we'll keep an eye on the comments like we always do, just in case there are other questions that we can answer. But I know it's been great to kind of talk, one, as a parent of someone with NVLD, kind of like getting your experience and your feedback, and 2, just hearing about your amazing book. Honestly, that's so cool that you kind of were like, it's not there, so I'm going to create it, and we're going to take care of this problem on our own. I really do love that. It looks like we have another comment. Her son, middle school, uses Google Classrooms. He's on an IEP with social worker and OT included. She really wants him to go one-on-one private school, but she's saying Google Classroom is also a pretty good app. Now, I'm an ex-teacher, and when Google Classroom first came out, it was very minimal, but I've heard that it does have a lot more features now over the last few years. So I definitely think Google Classroom is something that people can look into. And I agree. I do think more and more schools are using apps for some of that communication with parents and homework tracking, and just honestly technology in general when it comes to doing classwork. So yeah, it's really interesting. I don't see any more comments in here for us to answer on today, but I do want to encourage anybody watching this after we're live that if you do have comments, questions, you want to ask Kacy anything about parenting or her book, or if she's got any tips or tricks for her son that she's been using that have been helpful, feel free to drop those down in our comments below. We do come on and check those over the next few days. So as we see those, we'll be answering those as they come in. We definitely want to make sure that we're answering everything we can. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on. This was really exciting. I absolutely love your book. I love that you used pictures in your book. And again, that you focus on both those challenges, but also those strengths and those unique skills that are really kind of different than what other people have to offer. And it's just, there's so many things that those strengths and skills can offer that we really do want to focus on, like, okay, what can we do with that? We can overcome these challenges and work on the challenges too, but like, let's also focus on the positive. And I think it's great that your book does both of those. So thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Yeah, of course. And
Thank
I did drop your website link into the comments as well. So if anybody wants to click on that, you can buy her awesome t-shirt or any of her books on there. So definitely check that out. And yeah, we're going to head off for the day, but thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I just want to say one thing. The most surprising thing about me writing the book is that a lot of people that have bought the book, or a lot more people than I expected, buy the book, and it's not because their children have nonverbal learning disability. They're buying it because they have nonverbal learning disability and they want their children or their nieces and nephews to understand them. And I thought that was so cool. I had one lady who was pregnant and she said she had nonverbal learning disability, no current, children in this world, just carrying one. And she was buying the book so that her child would be able to understand her. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's truly amazing. That's yeah, that's super heartwarming. I love that it's like, even though it's like a kid's book, like adults are using it as well to kind of get their inner circle,
Yeah.
to
Yeah. So
understand
that
how
was
to interact with them. Yeah.
that was shocking to me, but I like it.